valuation of businesses. So right from the subject matter experts who are doing those things in the industry, they come and take that course for the students, and students can choose a plethora of such courses according to their choices. That's one change. Second change is that we have now made the curriculum more optional for students, or more choices for students to take even the core courses. So earlier we had 14 core courses. Now we have 10 core courses and a bucket of 4 core courses, which the students can choose according to their interest and specialization they intend to do. So, for example, you take 10 core courses, and the remaining 4 core courses, you can choose a bucket of areas where you want to specialize in, be it finance or be it a particular combination of courses. So, that's one area where the curriculum has undergone a change, giving students much more flexibility in terms of customizing their learning journey. That's one. Second is in terms of getting more hands-on industry exposure, more hands-on real-world exposure through courses at ISB. And the third aspect is learning to learn throughout their lives. So learning should not stop at ISB once they graduate from ISB. People should be learning throughout their lives. And one aspect here where we have brought in a lot of mentorship, a lot of leadership coaching, a lot of coaching for students from industry practitioners. So that's one aspect we've added to the curriculum from this year onwards. So three key things: flexibility in terms of the curriculum, hands-on application learning, and learning to learn through interaction with industry leaders through leadership coaching and executive coaching that will be part of the curriculum onwards.
Excellent. And in fact, that is the hour, need of the hour actually. I graduated in 2006, and I can very well relate to that continuous learning aspect. You have to keep on learning, you have to keep on upgrading, and you have to be in the habit of, picking up things and lessons from around and from the industry for sure. So, Amit, there's one thing that comes round and round is what are the most important factors that the admissions committee considers when they're evaluating applicants? So, does it
Sure.
vary with respect to where the applicant is coming from? How does it work actually?
So the evaluation follows a criteria, but of course it varies from candidates to candidates. So we don't compare individuals against each other. Every individual is unique. Every application is unique. We'll encourage students to showcase their strengths and their profile in the best possible manner. Now, if you look at evaluation, it's very simple. First, up in the evaluation process is a profile score, which you look at for the candidates through the various information that we capture in the application. So profile score consists of your academics, your work history, your test scores, your essays, your LOR activities, and so on and so forth. All this will become a combination of all this will become a score, which we call the profile score. And the shortlisting happens on the profile score. There's a cutoff for the profile score above which we'll call before the interviews. And in the interviews, the LMs will give you a qualitative score on your profile through the interactions that you have, primarily on the application that you've filled in, and we give them an interview score. Adding the two together, you get the overall score, which will determine your chances of getting an offer, scholarship, waitlist, and so on and so forth at ISB. So it's very simple. Now, if you look at this particular evaluation process, uh, there's no cutoff for any one single parameter. So we don't say, if your CADs are low, you're we won't consider you at all. Or if your GMAT score is below one particular score, you won't consider you at all. It's a combination of things. So individuals or candidates can balance their profile accordingly. So if you feel that your CADs are on the lower side, get a higher GMAT score, or showcase your work experience in the best possible manner, or have clarity in your essays. And or if your GMAT is lower, if your CADs are good and other parameters are in place, you still get into the classroom. So in that sense, each applicant is unique, and you should focus on your strengths, showcase your strengths, and try to cover up your weak areas. So that's what I'll suggest. We don't compare people against each other for not at all, because I'm preempting a lot of questions that people will say, I'm a male engineer, will I have a chance to get in, or I'm from so and so background. No, it's not about your background. Showcase your skill sets, work on your parameters, and you have a strong chance to get in.
A very common question around this is, for my background, what is a safe GMAT score? And
I
we
know, yes.
always have to end up saying that please get the best score possible. Why should you even
Best
settle
score
for a
possible.
lesser one?
Exactly. So look at the best score that you can get, and then try to work on the other parameters. Is what I'll advise to candidates in such scenarios.
Correct. So, trying to enumerate the qualities or attributes beyond the academic achievements and the test scores, what are the real qualities that one can really try to balance out, or what do you look for in the ideal candidate?
So again, as I mentioned, beyond the test scores, beyond the academics, look at your work history. So essentially, we are looking at what skill sets you bring to the table and how clear you are in terms of the gaps in those skill sets and where you want to go. So if you have first is self-awareness on your own skill sets across your acads, across your work history, across your various other activities that you do. What skill sets you gain? Are you aware of them or not? Second thing is, are you aware of what are the gaps in your skill sets regarding a particular goal that you have in mind for your career? So if you like say in your essays, I want to go to consulting. Are you aware of what skill sets you want to fill at ISB? Right. So it's very simple in that sense that be self-aware about your particular profile and your skill sets. Identify why you want to go do an MBA or from ISB and what skill sets you want to or gaps you want to fill, and eventually how will you build a career post ISB using those two skill sets, the skill set that you already have and what you want to acquire. If you're clear on that, rest all will fall in place. So clarity and building your narrative is what I'll suggest people take into account, because application is not just discrete information to be filled, a cat's work X. It's a story which you can paint on, or it's a canvas for you to paint on about your narrative and about the journey you intend to take.
Yes. And there's a very interesting question here. What do we do if we don't have any recent achievements or awards? So, what are the kind of achievements and awards that, the team is looking at? Everybody, I'm coming from the fact that, somebody who's working in a power plant, they might not have,
Hmm.
the time to go into any extracurriculars. So, are they not eligible? Should they not apply? There are
No,
so many doubts
not at
around
all.
this.
So it's not about extracurriculars alone per se. I'm not saying that if you need to have extracurriculars to get into ISB. Extracurriculars showcase something in your profile, right? For example, I'll give you an example around certifications, for example, or co-curricular things. If you say that I want to go into finance, right, and in your activities or certifications you mentioned or everything about marketing, you're part of a marketing club at your undergrad and so on and so forth. Then where is the finance part coming in? What is the story being built? It's conflicting. So activities and extracurriculars are there to embellish your narrative in terms of where you want to go. So if you want to go into finance or if you want to go to consulting, showcase those activities. Not all activities are equal. There's no point talking about a certificate in finance if you want to go to marketing or vice versa. So activities should be part of your narrative. So if you don't have an activity, something else might be there, right? You did a course in a power plant, something which builds up your maybe analytical skill sets, and now you will gain business skill sets at ISB, and then those two skills might help you get into consulting and succeed in that role with the domain knowledge that you have in power sector, right? So that thing is important. Standalone, no activity or extracurriculars would have any value unless you link it to your skills and what your end goal is.
Yes.
And
And Amit, yes, please go ahead.
no, go ahead. I think I'm done. I'll take that up as a part of another question. I'm preempting a lot of questions. I don't want to do that, right away.
Okay. So there are a lot of updates to the application sections in the current format of the application. So what are the most important ones that we should look at, and what are things that are going to be important for this evaluation?
So of course, essays every year we are changing the topics now, and essays we are testing your self awareness per se. The two essays that we have, which are mandatory. Then optional essays more about your career goals, how you intend to build a career for yourself, and so on and so forth. It's not mandatory because a lot of people may not have a goal in mind right away, or may not have a very clear goal in mind right away. They might want to go to ISB, take the core courses, maybe and then make up their minds on what they want to specialize in, how they want to do. That also is okay. But what we are looking at is how aware you are about your skill sets currently, and if you have an idea of where you want to go after ISB. So that's something which candidates should keep in mind. Another thing is that we have now given a lot of a space to build a resume for candidates. You can upload your resume in the format given in the application form. So that also is a space for you to showcase your other skill sets and activities which you felt. A lot of people used to tell us that we feel constrained by the application form. We can't showcase this or we can't showcase that. So now you have that space as well to showcase your other skill sets. For reapplicants, especially, one thing that stands out is a reapplicant essay. So, reapplicant essay is something which you can use to showcase your most recent achievements and which will be picked up in the interviews as a conversation starter. What was your most recent things? And if you write something there, be prepared to talk about it in depth, because that could be the make or break for your interview. If your interview goes on a good note, and it could have a knock on effect on the rest of the conversation. But if in the first conversation itself you fumble, then it might not go well for you. So those are the key things I'll want to applicants to keep in mind: the resume, the essays, and the reapplicant essay.
Yes. And coming, proceeding on the same discussion onto the reapplicants. How are the reapplicants evaluated? Does ISB go back to the previous application form? What mindset do they come with into this application cycle?
So there's no bias against reapplicants at all. A lot of reapplicants every year people get in, out their second or third attempts. So we don't hold it against them. Only thing is that we don't go back and first of all look at your last year's application. We don't, go back and look at your last year's essays and so on and so forth. Only thing is that you have an additional essay to be written that what has changed in your profile since the last time you got it. So reapplicants, absolutely no bias. It's you're free to use your last year's essays or snippets of them as long as they were your original essays in the first place, or you can modify them or change everything as per your current goals. But we won't go back and look at your last application. Then there's absolutely no bias for the applicants in the selection process, positive or negative.
Right. We have a lot of live questions as well. I'll bring up a few so that they are addressed
Sure.
as well. And I think this is one question from Amit. Is ISB campus family friendly? Because I have my daughter and wife to live with me.
Sure, sure. So I'm sure Shruti can also answer that. She has experienced the campus. But at ISB, we have a lot of people with work ex ranging from 2 to 22 years. People with 8+ years of work experience constitute around 15 to 20% of the class, which comes to around 80 to 120 people, depending on the year in which they join. So and they bring their families on campus. So we have two types of accommodations. We have what we call the quads. A quad is essentially a 4 BHK where you get a room of your own, and there's a common dining area and a living area for the four people in the quad. And then there's a studio apartment, which is a one-bedroom house, fully furnished apartment for people with families. They can bring in their parents or dependents or their spouses and kids. And we have a lot of activities for the spouses and kids of the students as well. There is in fact a club specifically for developed by the for the spouses of the students for their activities, so that they can also socialize among themselves while their spouses are undergoing the rigorous 1 year program. And for the kids, we have facilities for bus pickups in the campus itself. The most of the school buses come inside the campus to pick up schools. They have access to a recreation center and the wonderful library across both the campuses. I'm sure if you come with your daughter and wife, they're going to have a wonderful time at the campus, and they'll miss the campus more than what you will eventually after graduating from the class.
Trust me, they won't want to go back. They would ask you to, continue here somehow. Yes. So, and I mean, Balakrishnan has a question. He says, I have and this is a question which comes in different formats a lot of times. 15 years of total work experience, age is 37, currently working in a PSU. Can I switch careers at this stage after doing an MBA? And I'll just go beyond this. How does ISB support this career shift?
So one of the key features or advantages, as we call it, of the PGP program is positive career pivots. So people come to ISB to change and transition their careers in terms of their industries and functions. So last year's cohort, 74% of the class had a functional shift, and 70% of the class had an industry shift. Right. So it's definitely possible, because that's what the PGP program at ISB is for, to change your careers or pivot your careers to different industries and functions. Now, but for people who come in with 15 years of work experience, you need to have a lot of clarity in terms of your skill sets, in terms of your past work experience. What have you gained? How transferable your skill sets are to other industries or your target industries. So that is some clarity which we'll definitely expect from you. Uh, the reason being, your 15 years of work experience cannot be wished away. You have learned something for 15 years, and that could be your domain knowledge or could be your other skill sets which you have could be transferred to some other industries, and that awareness is what we'll expect from you. Otherwise, transitions are definitely possible. A lot of examples of people with 22 years of work experience, 18 years of work experience, transitioning into a different industry altogether. But of course, with that prior work experience also adding to it. You just can't start from the scratch after 15 years of work experience.
Absolutely. And you need to see how you can build on top of that work experience rather than just trying to, shift to something new altogether. And Nilesh has a question about how does the college international exchange work in ISB? So this is about, how can I opt for an international exchange? What are the options or the tie-ups that ISB has? And how can the student avail such an opportunity?
Sure. So we have, as of now, as of the this academic year, 56 plus universities and these schools worldwide for student exchange opportunities available for our students, both inbound and outbound. So that is, you also go to those campuses, and a lot of students from those campuses come to ISB campuses across Hyderabad and Mohali to pursue their exchange opportunities. Now, these universities are spread across the world. You have colleges like Kellogg, Wharton, Fletcher. You have INSEAD. You have colleges in Europe, Korea, Southeast Asia, Australia. So you can choose from a plethora of opportunities or options in terms of international exchange opportunities. Now, how does it work? It works on a bidding system. So you have certain points at the beginning of your elective courses, and you use those points to bid for various things which are in demand on the campus. It could be, let's say, a class by a staff faculty member, or it could be, let's say, an international exchange at Kellogg's. It could be an international exchange in one particular school. So at that point, when the demand is more than supply, let's say a faculty can only take 50 students in a class, and there are 80 people wanting to enroll for the class, then you bid with your points that you are given at the beginning of the year, and you bid certain points. If you have bid enough points, you get the class, else you set for something else. So that's how exchange also works. So if you want to go to, let's say, Kellogg or Wharton, you might want to bid the maximum points, uh, right? And then you might lose out on something else. It's all a matter of your priorities and choices. So that's how you'll get an action opportunities work at ISB.
Yes, and technically, actually, you can choose your MBA experience. You can choose your journey going forward. If once you are at ISB, you will get those points, and you need to decide where you want to spend them and what kind of an experience you want. Right. So there's this question about second MBA. So, a series of questions here. First is, sure, does ISB approve of a second MBA? How do they look at people applying for second MBAs? Second is that once I'm looking at a second MBA, what do I have to come in with? How many years of experience post my previous MBA?
Yeah, sure. So we do look at second MBA favorably. I mean, there is no uh, negative against people who want to come and do the second MBA. A lot of people every year who join after 3-4 years of work experience after their first MBA. The people who join maybe immediately after 1 or 2 years also. It depends upon why you want to do that second MBA. The aspiration or the reason for doing an MBA, maybe after immediately or after 4 years or 5 years. Of course, that is what we'll be looking at in your interviews and in your applications. So, second MBA is perfectly fine. We don't look at it negatively at all. But of course, you should have your reasons on why you want to do it, and why from ISB.
Yes. And now the question about ISB scholarships. How do these scholarships work? What are the opportunities? And do they differ across rounds? I mean, is it like I get a different eligibility for scholarships in round one? And if I apply to round two, it decreases to a certain level? Plus, who is the ideal candidate to get a scholarship at ISB?
So there are different types of scholarships that we have. First is merit scholarship, and merit scholarship is for candidates across the applicants. So you don't need to apply for merit scholarship; you'll be automatically considered for merit scholarship. And the criteria here is your performance in the ISB selection process. So as I mentioned earlier, your profile score, your interview score, which will include your GMAT, GRE, admissions, interviews, and so on and so forth. That will determine what kind of scholarship you get. The higher up in the overall score you are, more the chances of scholarships that you have. in terms of the amount as well as the chances of getting it. So for merit scholarships, we offer up to 100% tuition fee waivers, and that translates to around 25 lakhs is the tuition fee at ISB. So you can gain around 25 lakhs for the in terms of merit scholarship. The minimum scholarship is around 8.5. It starts from 8.5 lakhs and goes all the way to 25 lakhs for the merit scholarship. There's also merit cum need scholarship, which is for candidates whose annual family income is less than 18 lakhs per annum. For them, we will also look at their need and then their merit and offer them tuition fee waivers. Again, the maximum tuition fee waivers under this particular category is 25 lakhs and starts from around 8 lakhs onwards for candidates. There are a lot of other scholarships like diversity scholarship, I6 scholarship, and a lot of other donor-based scholarships which you would not apply, but will contact you if you are fitting into that particular donor's criteria, and you might have to write an essay or so depending upon the requirements of that particular scholarship. There's a women's scholarship instituted in the memory of a former professor, and so on and so forth. Now, last year we dispersed around 20 crores worth of scholarships to around 22 to 25% of a batch last year. They received some sort of scholarship or other at ISB. The chances of scholarships now don't decrease across the 3 rounds. Across the 3 rounds, you now have chances to get 100% tuition fee waivers. But having said that, I'll encourage people to apply early because, as you know, the scholarship pool can be limited, and if more people apply in round one, chances are that the pool only diminishes towards the last 3 rounds. But now we have put in criteria or system that across the 3 rounds, you now have an equal chance of getting a scholarship.
What about the admits released across the rounds? Is there a parity? How does ISB release
Yeah,
the
yeah,
admits
sure.
across
So
every
even
round?
yeah, admits wise, there is absolute parity. So we don't have quotas across rounds. We don't say we'll take so many people in round one, round two, round three. It's all about the cutoff. So as long as you meet the cutoff, you'll be made an admission in any of the rounds, whether it be round one, round two, or round three. So in terms of chance of getting into the class, there's no difference across the 3 rounds. But what is different is in terms of the time that you get to prepare for your ISB journey. So if you apply in round one, your results will come out in November, mid-November, third week of November, and you'll have a clear 4 month window to plan for your ISB journey, to give a notice periods, to arrange for your loans, and also to catch up with people in your cities and make those city-based groups, and you'll be part of various activities. So chances are you'll know your batchmates much before everybody else. Round two, the results will come out in Feb first week, so you have just 2 months, and round three will be tight. The results will come out by first week of March, and you just start by April 15th. So if you have to give a notice periods to the employers or arrange for loan, that might get a bit tight. So I always advise people to apply earlier. Don't wait for round three if you're ready. But the key thing here is to be ready. Apply in the round in which you think you can give your best application, be it in terms of essays or in terms of any other parameters, test scores, and so on and so forth.
Correct. And this is a question coming from Kishore. I'm keen to join the PGP. I worked as a business analyst for he has a career gap. So he's trying to ask about when he's preparing for the GMAT preparation, if he takes an off, how does this affect the chances of admission?
See, from the evaluation point of view in the profile score, gaps do not, we don't look at gaps per se. We look at what you've done rather than what you're not doing, or whether there was a gap. There could be a gap for various reasons. Could be, taking a break for family reasons, for personal travel, or and so on, also health reasons, and so on and so forth. But if you take a gap for preparing for GMAT, you'll definitely, or for any other reason, you'll definitely be asked that question in the interview: why there's a gap and what was the reason? Why is it that you were not able to prepare along with your, other work? What were the reasons, and so on and so forth. As long as you're able to answer those questions or without being defensive, or able to give valid reasons, perfectly okay. In terms of evaluation, I don't think that should be a problem, but interview, definitely you might be asked that question.
Yes. And it's up to you to, have a strong narrative for that. If yes, then so be it. Correct. And when ISB offers admits or when ISB evaluates profiles, is there a class profile in mind before the selection process? Let's say, we'll take X% of IT professionals and then law professionals and then artists or maintaining the diversity. How is that balanced out?
So essentially, it's like saying there's a cap on a particular category of students. No, there's no cap on the particular category of students, but the evaluation process is so holistic that we end up getting a lot of diverse candidates from different walks of life. So if I have to talk about the class profile currently in the class right now, so we have around 47% women in the class this year, one of the highest in the country among the top institutes, and at par with the top global B schools like Harvard, Wharton, and so on and so forth. In terms of engineers versus non-engineers, we have 56% engineers this year. Last year, we had 49% engineers. So it varies from year to year. So we don't have a cap saying that only so many engineers, only so many professionals. No, as long as you can showcase your skill sets, your uniqueness, as long as you clear the parameters, you will be made an offer, regardless of the background. And we had people from backgrounds such as from B Pharma, people from the there was somebody from the education side who was a teacher in an IB board school, and so on and so forth. A lot of people, as long as you can showcase your skill sets, showcase the build the narrative on why ISB is good for you, I think you're good to go.
Yes. And do enlighten us on the GMAT or the GRE scores. What has been the range like in the previous intake, and what are the averages that we can relate to?
Sure. Sure. So for GMAT, ranges and averages change year in year for both GMAT and GRE. I'll talk about the current cohort which is in the class. So this year's range is 317 to 338. 330 is the average score. 330 is also the median. For GMAT, this we had very few focus addition students this year since by our deadline the classical was still in play. So for GMAT, the range has been 610 to 780, and the median score was 710, average was 720.
Right. And when we look at it from especially the GMAT, when we look at it from the percentiles point of view, what is a good GMAT percentile for us to bank on?
Yeah, so again, that will vary from people to people. And we, to clarify, we look at percentiles. Scores are just a proxy for percentiles. When I say median is 710, it's a proxy for a percentile, which is around 92% percentile for the GMAT. So again, it will vary for candidate to candidate. It depends on what your other parameters are. But if you think that you have average work ex, you have decent acads, then look at the median score. Median is half the people are above, half are below. So look at the 92 percentile mark is something I'll say is safe for almost everyone, as long as your other parameters in play. If you want to cover up maybe a weaker acads and aim slightly higher, or if you have great work
Right.
experience, you might also get make do with slightly lesser work ex, lesser percentile. But around median is what I'll suggest people to aim for.
Yes. And what is a good GMAT or GRE score for an engineer versus a good GMAT or a GRE score for an artist? Is there a difference at all?
No. No. GMAT is just one part of your evaluation process. So artists will bring something totally different in other areas, which might give him or an edge. Similarly, if engineers will have an edge somewhere else. So since it's a holistic profile evaluation process, that so many components that we look at. So GMAT or GRE is just one part of it. So I wouldn't say somebody with an engineer or somebody who's a non-engineer might need a higher or lower GMAT score. They can get admission with a lower GMAT score also, as long as the other parameters are something else, right? So it's
Yes.
totally about your other parameters.
Right. And just addressing our audience right now, in case you have any questions, we are running out of time. So please do share your questions here so that we can take them up. We already have some questions which are still pending. This is one very interesting question. Actually, this person had reached out yesterday and he had just qualified as CA, let's say yesterday on 11th July. However, he had around 1.5 years of prior work experience, which was apart from his articleship. So will that work experience be considered, or so let's assume the articleship experience is not considered, but will that work experience be considered for the
No,
eligibility, or does it start from now?
it starts from now. So there are three clear rules of work experience. One is that it should be a full-time activity. Second is it should not be concurrent with your any other full-time activity. So CA and CA articleship is a full-time activity. So whatever work experience he has in concurrence with CA and articleship will not be counted as full-time work experience. Of course, it will be counted as part-time. He can showcase it as part-time work experience on his profile. That may give some things to talk about and some points on the profile. And the third criteria is it should be a paid activity. You can't do a pro bono activity and call it work experience. So three clear rules, and this violates rule number 2, so it will not be considered as work experience. So anything which you do while you undergrad with your along with your undergrad, along with your masters, is not full time work experience.
Yes. And another question that has been really pressing all of us is your inputs or updates on the early entry option and the YLP intake for the upcoming cycle. Is there anything that you have to share for us? How do we look at it?
So people who are preparing for YLP or early entry option will have an announcement for you all shortly, maybe in the next 10 to 15 days. YLP and early entry option will come back in a different format, different avatar. But I urge you all not to stop your preparation for GMAT